Welcome to Rocks, Ruts, and Roots. I am Chris Elmore, your host of this show, and this is episode number 4, and I am super excited to be talking to our guest today. He is the race director for the Transrockies run, which happens in Colorado each year in August, and 5 years ago I raced that race, and I am going back this year. So after I'm done with the 26-week series, training for my first 100, I'll take a little bit of time off, and then I'll start ramping up training for the Transrockies, which is a 6-day, 120-mile race. So I am super pumped to talk to Mr. Kevin McDonald, also known as Huda, for all of those who know the Transrockies run. And he is a world traveler, an athlete himself, and just done some amazing things with this race. So before we get to that, I want to give you guys a quick update on the shirts. The shirts are at the printer. They're being made. I checked the proof yesterday. Everything looks great, so those should be in the mail. Hopefully, we'll get them in the mail this upcoming week, and you'll be getting them, wearing them, posting them on social media. Second, I would like to thank all of my Patreon supporters, all of you guys that are out there helping make what I'm doing easier by supporting me through a Patreon subscription. People like Alex Baker, Eric Spiegler, Jamie Cantrell, Jason Phillips, Rob Harmon, Todd McKnight, Michael Outler, Maxwell Margett, and more. Those are just some of them. Each week I try to mention different folks who are just really helping make this journey for me a success in providing better content, more content, and helping offset some of my costs. So for those of you who are interested and like what I'm doing, check out patreon.com/CJ Media. There you can subscribe and you'll get access to videos sooner. You'll get behind the scenes information, direct channel to me. So again, thank you to those who support me. And if you like what I'm doing, it'd be great if you were able to jump on there and support me as well. Third thing I'd like to talk about is Head Sweats. I'm a Head Sweats ambassador, and I love the quality of their gear. As you can see, the gear I'm wearing right now, this hat, I wear a ton of different Head Sweats hats, and I love them. The quality, they're like magic hats. You may sweat when you run, but there's never a sweat stain that actually shows up. So I'm not sure what they do, but they're amazing hats. So with Head Sweats, they've got hats, visors, beanies, headbands, and you can get those at 25% off using a discount code for me, which is CJAYE25, and that'll get you 25% off at headsweats.com. So now let's jump right into the episode. Out, trail run. All right. Well, we are live, Mr. Huda. How you doing, Kevin?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to have you on the show. You know, it's been 5 years since I did Transrockies the first time, and it was such an amazing race that I have talked about it every year and told my wife I want to do it again. And, you know, being that it's really like a 7 or 8 day commitment to go do the race. For those of you who aren't familiar, I'll let you do a better, talk about it. But basically, it's a 6-day. There's a 3-day and a 6-day stage race. You're running anywhere from 13 miles on the days you do two days. At least back when I did it, there was a 13 and a 14 that went up above 13,000 feet or so. You go over Hope's Pass, which is famous in Leadville, and the race, the Leadville 100. And then the other 4 days are all above 20 miles or so, and you end up with 120 miles total at the end of it. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, so stage 2, Hope Pass, is 13 miles, and stage 4 is 14 miles.
Yeah. I remember, day one, that last road that we did back then, I forget what the name of the camp is that you're headed to. Is it camp?
You go to Railroad. The finish is at Railroad Bridge on stage 1, but then we shuttle you to Arrowhead.
Yeah, and that I just remember that road being so long after you come out of the hills, thinking this dirt road never ends, and it's only day one.
Day 1 is very it's exposed, it's hot, and that last 4 miles on the road, everybody is cursing my name because they hate that gravel road the last 4 miles. But I always tell people the first stage that Transrockies run is the worst, and it only gets better from there. So,
well, I want to talk all about the race, but I wanted to talk about you and kind of get an intro to who you are and what you do. And you're all over the world. I see you traveling and exploring and racing yourself. I know you've done some triathlons, things like that. So you're in, is it Alberta, Canada?
Yeah, I'm in a little mountain town. Most people know Banff, Alberta. That's kind of the iconic national park of Canada. And I live about 15 minutes down the road in a mountain town called Canmore, Alberta, which is famous for the 1988 Olympics. They hosted the cross-country skiing and biathlon in Canmore in the 88 Olympics in Calgary. So,
yeah, so is it just full of snow outside right now?
Oh, yeah. We're coming up deep freeze. We had a polar vortex. It was minus 20 for the last month, but we're coming out of that. So,
wow. So are you getting much outdoor exercise in at that point?
A few runs, but I've been on the indoor bike trainer and at the pool swimming. Lifting weights, doing some CrossFit, just trying to stay healthy and not go outside too much. But yeah, like I told you before, I'm headed to LA, San Diego on Sunday. So I'm ready for some trail runs and some warm weather. So
yeah, I think we're actually going to get, we've had a ton of rain this year. And I was just looking this morning at the 10-day forecast, and we're kind of coming out of, it's pretty cold here. It's like 42 degrees. So we're coming out of that. And I think next week it's going to be in the 70s. So, yeah. And there is no rain in the forecast.
Perfect. I like to hear that.
Yeah, should be good. Now, it sounds like you're training for something right now?
Actually, yes. I'm training for the Bryce Canyon 60K.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there's a bunch of people from Canmore going down, and I'm dating this girl, and she's a big trail runner, and she's like, "Hey, let's go on an adventure some weekend." So we picked May long weekend. So I got one of those Sprinter vans, so we're packing up the Sprinter van and driving from Canmore, Alberta, down to Bryce Canyon. So it'll be about a 2-day drive, and then run Saturday, and then head back Sunday. So.
That's awesome. I've been trying to sell my wife on the Sprinter van for years, telling her, you know what, I need a little cot in there. I can put my bike. I can go to races early. So I'm still chipping away at that.
Yeah. Mine's an old FedEx truck, so it has lots of miles on it, but it's still going though.
That is awesome. Yeah, Bryce, it looks amazing. There's the Bryce, there's Zion, there's those races kind of in that, I forget if they call it a triangle or whatever it is right there. Yeah. And so that race has multiple distances, right?
Yeah. They have a 100-miler, 50K, 60K, 100-miler, 100K. So that'd be my first ultra, actually.
I was going to ask what the longest run or ultra you've done. So this will be the first one, huh?
Yeah. So I've done a bunch of trail runs, but the longest one was last year, a 32K, actually in Southern California, the Old Goat. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Steve Harvey. So he's I think a 9-time finisher at Transrockies run, and so he has a little race series in SoCal. So I did the 32K actually. It wasn't 30, it was 32K.
Yeah, he has a 24-hour one as well that I keep saying I'm going to do one of these days. It's a looped course on a ranch, and I really want to go do that race.
Yeah. So it was fun.
Yeah, I remember seeing him. For those of you guys who don't know who he is, how old is he?
He's got to be 70 something, 73, 72 maybe.
Yeah, I just remember seeing him, right? He's got this backpack with this goat on the back, and he's doing the race, and he always passed me. We'd be like the midway through whatever the mileage was for the day, and here we come to an aid station, and he's popping a beer at the aid station, and he's just trucking along. He's amazing.
Yeah. He stopped drinking a couple years ago, actually.
Oh, did he?
For health reasons, but he's still doing well though.
Is he going to be there this year?
You know what? That's a good question. I don't know. I know his wife's having health issues too. But I'm trying to get him to come. And then his sidekick, I don't know if you know Doug Melwicki. And then everyone knows Gordy Ainsley. He's the pioneer of the Western States. So Doug and Gordy are teaming up to come this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they did it. They did Transrockies run. Gordy and Doug did it back probably 4 or 5 years ago too, around the time you did it.
Okay. Yeah, that was it was so cool the year we did it. We had that the 2-bedroom above the clock tower, right at the clock tower by the race start.
Yeah, yeah.
And we could oversee the race, and my buddy Gary and I did it. And that was the coolest. I actually rented that same building, but I did the 1-bedroom because it's just me coming out. You know, it's
Right.
like, do I really need a 2-bedroom? Blah blah blah. I'm like, as much as I want it, I should probably be reasonable and just get the the smaller place. But it's still right there at the. Is the race start in the same area?
And you're talking about Buena Vista?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It starts on South Main. Yep, same spot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a perfect place. It's
Yeah.
that's a cool little town.
Yeah, Buena Vistas. Yeah, it turned when we started. Starting there in 2008.
Okay.
Buena Vista. So yeah, we've started there ever since 2008. So it's kind of grown from a small little, sleepy rafting town, and the Arkansas River's right there, and it was tons of rafting people. Now it's kind of blossomed into a little, not a little city, but it's getting pretty big and kind of gentrified, as they call it, right?
Yeah, well, they have the older part of the town, and then you take that main street and it kind of curves around, and then there's all those new houses out there kind of right down by the water. So it's like night and day, the difference. I remember when we arrived, I try and arrive on Saturday to give myself a few days to acclimate, and there was a burro run. I had never seen a burro run. I had never heard of a burro run back then, and I had never seen one in person. And I was just blown away at these guys and girls running basically right where we started, right? They went up that same trail where we start with a burro.
Yeah. Okay. I've never seen one either until I went to Buena Vista. Yeah.
Yeah, that was hilarious. So I wanted to get into a little bit of your background, kind of how you got to where you were, because I'm trying to remember back in 2005 if you were the race director then, or were you doing, because you work for a couple race organizations, or, you explain it.
Yeah. So I'm kind of independent, race consultant. So I work for Transrockies is my main gig. And then I also work for this grassroots trail running company in Alberta called Five Peaks. So we do shorter distance trail runs. It's for mostly people getting off the road. That's kind of our tagline, get off the road. So the owner of Transrockies, Aaron, him and I used to work for an event company in Toronto, a mountain bike company called 24 Hours of Adrenaline. And we had a North American series. He was the race director of all the Western events, and I was the race director of all the Eastern events. That was back in 2002. And then, he quit that job and went back and did his MBA, and then bought into Transrockies in Calgary and said to me, hey, want to come out west and move out west and help me with Transrockies? So I'm like, sure. Love the mountains, love being out in nature. So I packed up my car and drove from Ontario to Alberta. It took me 4 days. And then, that's kind of my background. I grew up playing sports, and after college, I knew I wanted to get involved with sports. So I did an internship at the Olympics in Atlanta. I'm dating myself. So that was in '96. And then the next Summer Olympics were in an English-speaking country, Sydney. So I'm like, let's go to Australia. So me and a couple of buddies packed up, and we did a round-the-world trip, and we stopped in Sydney for 6 months, and I got a job with an event company down there, and we did all Samsung's PR and marketing and events. And then after the Olympics were done, we kind of went to Asia for a couple of months, and then the Middle East for a month, and then we ran out of money. And then we headed back home to Canada, and then got a job with the Canada Summer Games, which is our springboard for Olympic athletes here in Canada.
Yeah.
And then like I said, met Aaron in 2002 at 24 Hours of Adrenaline, and then moved out to Alberta in 2007, and I've been working for Transrockies since 2007. So, and Transrockies, I didn't do the first year of Transrockies run. That was 2007, and then the second year was 2008, and that's when I came on board. And so, this will be my 12th year. It's 13th year of Transrockies run this year. So,
when I did it, 2000. I'm trying to remember 5 years ago. In 2013, I think, is when I did it last. Was might have been the first year you introduced the solo. I think. Yeah, because it was always a partner, so I needed to find a partner for that race. So that was my whole plan, and I recruited my neighbor Gary, and he's a police officer and super fit. So I recruited him to do it, and then I've wanted to do it again ever since. And when I started trying to recruit, it was harder to find somebody, but luckily it's like, hey, there's a solo. So as much fun as it is to have that partner to help drag you along, because, over 6 days, your motivation kind of comes and goes, and having that person to pull you along really helps. But one of the things that I found that was so neat about your race is that because you typically run the same speed or same pace over days, right? You start to find this group of people that you're constantly with. So, throughout the day, each day you might start different, at the starting line, but say an hour into it or more, you start, all of a sudden it's the same people every day that you're kind of running with, and you really get to know them.
Well, and that's what makes this event so unique, right? Like you said, I've done trail runs. I did Ironman. I mean, I didn't really meet anybody at Ironman. I mean, no. I was there, even though I was there like, a month before, but it's not like, you and I are hanging out at the expo at Ironman and become lifelong buddies. And Transrockies run's very unique in that sense, because like you said, you run the same pace as, say 6, 7 other people. You get to know them. And then at come dinner time, you're like, hey, you want to have dinner together? And then you have dinner together, then you listen to the nightly presentation, then you go to Chillville, around the bonfire, have a beer, and you kind of create, I know it sounds cheesy, but we call it summer camp for big kids.
Yeah, I call it my runcation.
Yeah. So I think this event's very unique in the fact that, we cap it at 350 people, and then we have 100 crews. So there's, 450, 500 people in camp with all the vendors, and you really become lifelong friends with all these people that you meet. It's just like people from all over the world. So I never paid for a hotel ever.
Yeah, it's funny, just to kind of set the stage. Basically, you fly into Colorado, and there's a shuttle service for everyone who needs it. You shuttle out to Buena Vista, the start, and you stay the first night or 2 nights out, basically where in a hotel, or you can camp, you can do whatever you want, but until the race starts. Then the morning of the race, you tow the line, you take off, and you basically run from one city to the next, essentially through the trails. Sometimes you end up going through some city streets to get to another trail, but then when you're done, you hit the finish line. And many times there's water, so you can put your legs in some cold water. Then there's food, and there's the aid stations are amazing because they're stocked with food all along the way. And then dinner, you roll in after the race, there's basically an aid station there with a ton of food, and your tent is already set up. You basically just have to grab your gear bag, take it to your tent, and shower. There's shower trucks and porta potty trucks, and you basically, your goal for the rest of the day is recover and eat, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
And then every night is catered with unbelievable food buffet. So everybody comes together, and like you said, you see these people, and then pretty soon you're sitting down and you're having dinner with them, and there's a presentation, and then there's a bonfire. And like you said, with Ironman, you do Ironman, and for me, it was so stressful, right? You get there, you're getting through registration, then you want to get off your feet, and you really are kind of isolated in your hotel, and you may know somebody you're doing the race with, but then you do the race, and as soon as the race is over, you may stick around at the finish line, but it's over, and you move on. Where with this race, you may have that first day. For me, right? I went down and I registered, and you kind of go through that nervousness, and then the first day is nerve-wracking, getting up and going, but then you just get in this groove. And you get to know people, which is something you don't experience at any other race.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what I like about Transrockies, just the fact that, like you said, the first day everyone's nervous. The first day everybody kind of goes out too hard as well, and they kind of blow themselves up the first day. And then I always tell this to everybody. Then day 2, you're kind of nervous again because you're going up the top of Hope Pass, which is 12,500 feet. So people are still nervous on day 2. Then they make it over Hope Pass, and they have beautiful scenery, so they're pumped up at the end of the day 2. And then day 3, we start right downtown Leadville, right on Main Street.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, and we have police escort out of Leadville. We start right on Harrison Avenue there. And then we have a police escort to get you through Leadville. And then I always tell people, the ice breaks when we get to Camp Hale. No cell phone coverage. You can't leave camp. In Leadville, you can leave camp and walk 5 minutes to downtown Leadville.
Yep.
Once you get to end of day 3, there's no cell phone coverage. There's nowhere to go. And everyone's like, okay, They can breathe now, and they're like, I got this. I know what's going on. I know how it's going to work. And then everybody's kind of having fun. Then we do the beer mile. We have the Sufferfest beer mile. Yeah, you were there when Sufferfest was a sponsor.
No, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, so Sufferfest came on last year, and their beer was a hit. Actually, ran out of beer. We had to drive to Denver and get more beer. So their reps had to bring more beer from Denver. So it was kind of funny. Everyone loved their beer. So yeah. So and then did you do the beer mile? Was that a part of the program?
I don't believe so, or I was asleep. One or the other.
No, I don't think it was. I think it started after you. So yeah. So at 4:30 on at the end of day 3, we do the beer mile. So guys and girls partake, and in the crew, I let the crew do it as well. So the crew partakes, and so yeah, that kind of breaks the ice because it's kind of funny seeing everybody, puking everywhere and taking their clothes off. It kind of gets a little crazy. So,
well, the crazy thing is there's a 3-day and a 6-day. So day 3, you have this group of people that are pumped because it's their final day, and it's almost kind of like this. Screw you, man! I got 3 more days of this crap. And then they end, and then the next day they're all getting up and they're not racing, and you're getting ready to run again on day 4. So for me, it was exactly that. It took me, I'm terrible when it comes to races. I have to work really, really hard to eat for a race. My nerves kick in and I get, I can't eat food. So it took me until dinner I could eat, but breakfast, when you really need to get, some extra calories in there, I just suffered from day 1, day 2, and day 3. And then when we hit Leadville, we went into town. And that was like the first time I left the camp area, and we walked down to this like Golden Burrow, this little restaurant down in downtown Leadville. And I had like a cheeseburger. I had chicken fingers. I had fries. I just ate and ate and ate. Yeah. And then at that point, it was like this burden lifted off of me. It's like, you know what? This is supposed to be fun, and it was cool. That was kind of my tipping point.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And to your point, that's a great point. I'm going to change that in 2020, but we're going to have a 3-day race for the last 3 days. So like you said, everyone is finished the Goo Run 3, and, they're all pumped to be finished and having lots of beers. And so we're going to bring in a bunch of new people to Camp Hale, and they'll run the last 3 stages. So we're going to hold out for 2020. So
that'll be an interesting experience because you get a bunch of fresh people mixed in. People that are on day 4, that'll help kind of lift spirits and stuff like that. That'll be neat.
Well, that's kind of what I'm kind of thinking, right? Like you said, it's kind of a downer. So say you met people that are doing the Goo Run 3, and then they're all departing, and you're kind of bummed. Well, next thing you know, we're going to cap it at just 50 people, though. So we'll have 50 new people coming in to camp. So we'll have kind of everyone mingling, the new people, the old people, and like you said, it'll give you some fresh legs on the trail and some new personalities, and kind of like you said, maybe it'll lift your spirits for those people doing the 6 day. So
yeah, not that your spirits are ever that low, but for me, it was always day 4. Because you wake up. For anyone who hasn't done one before, this was the first time I had done a stage race like this. Right, I'd never run that kind of mileage back to back to back to back, and that first day, that last 4 miles, you kind of suffer through that point, right? And then the next day, you're just imagining, oh my God, I got to climb up to 13-some thousand feet. I might, I've never been that high. And you get past for me, it was day 4, I think it was. And at some point you're like, it's downhill. I can finish this. I've done this for 3 days. I can get up tomorrow and I know I can finish it. But there's always this question those first few days, can I do this over and over and over? And, the year I did it, we didn't have that bad of weather, but it did rain one day, I think. And then it did hail overnight one night. Yeah. And then you wake up in the morning, you unzip your tent and there's ice all over the ground. It's like, what the hell?
That's so crazy. That's so cold it's cold in Leadville. We're at 10,000 feet in Leadville. So yeah, for people out there that are listening, it's Leadville's 10,000 feet. It's super cold in Leadville and Camp Hale, but Buena Vista is not that cold. And Vail is not that bad. Yeah, those 3 days in the middle there, it gets pretty frosty in the mornings. But like last year, I ran stage 4, and you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I got my down jacket on, my beanie on, my gloves on, and then grab a quick bite to eat, change a few garbages, and then by 8 o'clock at the start, you're t-shirts and shorts, right? So it warms up quickly. So
yeah, that's always the thing, right? You're cold there in the beginning, and you got your gear on, and I swear, I feel like every day starts with an uphill, and by the time you crest that first little uphill, you're like peeling layers off and trying to cool down already. Two of my favorite parts of that race, one you said Vail, is when you finally crest and you're basically going down the ski slopes, I believe, and you see Vail down there, and it looks like you're in the Alps in this like Swiss village or whatever, and for those who have never been there, and you just see that, and it's an unbelievable sight to see, and then you run and you run and you run and you run and you think you're almost there and you're not because you're so high up this mountain, and you run and you run and you run. But that was one of my favorite parts, was seeing Vail.
Yeah. That's actually that's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because even though it's like one of the longest days, it's always voted one of the best stages because you're in the back bowls of Vail, so it's kind of cool. And Vail's an iconic mountain, and everyone, if they haven't been there, they heard about it. So if you haven't skied Vail, it's a great mountain, and it's just it's kind of like you said, you get to the top and you see the village way down below, and then you got to start running down the mountain to camp. But it's a cool finish. And I think we changed the finish from your year. We now actually finish right where we camp in Vail.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Before you finished almost downtown in front of a hotel or something.
Yeah.
No, I believe.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. We're right in the village. So now, actually the guy from Vail Mountain's like, Kev, why don't you just keep running right to camp instead of, having the participants walk there afterwards. So I'm like, it's a great idea. So we changed that about three years ago.
Okay.
So actually run down the mountain, then you run on pavement for like maybe, 100, 200 feet. And then the finish is right where all the tents and the catering tent is. So it's much better.
Yeah, because it is funny because you finish and you like want to take your shoes off and you kind of relax there. And then you realize, damn, I got to walk back to the camp, even though it's not that far, but you kind of follow the little trail. And I believe camp there is on like a little school field or something like that, where there's sorry, my camera turned off, where there is it's like a soccer field or something.
Yeah. It's a soccer field. Yeah. So nice plush grass. There's a golf course right behind it. It's kind of tucked away from the highway. We used to camp at Ford Park right on the highway, but then you hear the semi trucks, every 2 seconds all through the night drive by. I mean, it's not like people aren't snoring and farting all night. So
yeah,
bring earplugs.
Yeah. It's funny what altitude does to you. And then you definitely want earplugs. That was one of my biggest concerns being, living by the ocean, is the altitude and what it's going to be to run there. So that was probably my biggest, the biggest concern I had, being scared, was I going to get altitude sickness, things like that. So during training, I did go up to a couple peaks that are close to 11,000 locally here in California, but you're not up there very long, right? You run, maybe you start at 7,000 and then you get up that high and you come back down. So you're not really getting the benefits, but what you did get is you got the feeling of what it felt like to run in that altitude. And what I've always told people is, I got there a couple days. The first day, you kind of have that little, almost like you had too much to drink the night before. Yeah. And, that lasts the first day and you just drink a lot of water. But then by the time the race starts, when you start running, you feel tired. Like maybe you had already ran 6 miles, but it wasn't this, like stop you in your tracks, couldn't run. So that was an interesting experience for me. You just felt a little more winded. But then by day 2 or 3, you don't even notice it anymore. I think you're just so tired anyways. Nothing affects you.
Well, that's funny that you mentioned that, because that's the number one question we get is altitude. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, we've only had to pull 2 people off Hope Pass. They were from France and they just weren't prepared. And so we had to, help them get off Hope Pass. So that's 2 people in the last 12, 13 years. So most people, that's a good thing about trail running. If you're tired, you just walk, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's like our mountain bike race in Canada. There's lots of carnage, right? Because you get the top of the mountain, you still got to come down the mountains. But trail running, there's not too much carnage out there because you just walk, and a lot of people just power hike the whole thing anyway, so it's fine.
There's somebody peeking in the screen here. You could see someone woke up this morning.
Daughter.
Yeah, my daughter. So it's like you said, that the altitude was a concern, but it really wasn't a factor overall. Yeah. Now you guys also is it a multi-day mountain bike race?
Yeah, up in Canada, yeah.
And that is in Canada. So the Transrockies is the only one you're doing in Colorado at this point?
Yeah, so that's the only run. We actually do a 3-day mountain bike race in Moab, which is coming up at the end of March. So that's a 3-day stage race, mountain biking in Moab. So we have 2 events in the U.S. and the rest are in Canada.
Okay. Do you have a multi-day run in Canada?
Yes, we have Transrockies.
Yeah.
So that's in Revelstoke.
That looks amazing.
A 5-day run, and it's a bit more luxurious than Transrockies run. So everyone's based in a hotel. You can camp if you want, but it's basically you kind of start, and it's like in Revelstoke's this funky little town in the middle of British Columbia. So it's a bit. There's not a point to point like Transrockies run. So it's quite a bit easier. Not easier. It's harder than Transrockies run, but the logistics are way easier because you're based in Revelstoke and you don't leave Revelstoke. So it's kind of cool that way. You just we bus you to different locations each day, and then you run a loop, and then come back to Revelstoke Mountain, and then dinner's at Revelstoke Mountain every day. So,
oh, that's cool. Yeah, it's funny when we were doing Transrockies and we're sleeping in a tent every night. We shared a tent for the first 3 days, and then we met one of the girls there that was doing the 6-day. But once we got close to Leadville or Vail, they had a house there. So she actually is like, here's my tent. You can have my tent. I'm going to sleep at home from now on. Yeah. And we split apart and started sleeping in our own tent. While that was cool because you had more room, I will say part of the experience was, if you're running with a partner, is that being in that tent, going to sleep, talking, waking up. And then I also thought, how cool would it be to get an RV and have the family drive along or stay in a hotel? And the more I thought about it, the more I thought about that the experience is really the camping experience. Yeah. Right? I mean, it's beautiful, but it's that getting in the tent, waking up in the morning and touching the side of the tent and realizing it's wet, and taking your race clothes and like putting them in your sleeping bag so they're warm. There's a whole experience that goes along with it. Yeah.
That's funny that you mentioned that, because in 2013, we had a big group from New York City come out and do Transrockies run. And good friends Adrian and Chris were kind of they spearheaded the trip. And then 2 years later, the 10th anniversary, he brought some more folks out from New York City. But a funny story about that: so they lived in New York City, I don't know if all their life, but they never camped before. So Chris would take them from Manhattan, and then they would take the train up, or they drive up to Bear Mountain just north of New York City, and they would practice camping.
Oh, wow.
People have ever camped before. So, and like you said, the camping's part of the experience. And Chris didn't want them to stay in a hotel. He's like, no, you can stay in a hotel, but we want you to camp. It's part of the Transrockies experience. So, yeah, so it's kind of a funny story. I never heard that before, where you have to practice camping. But
that's pretty funny. Yeah, it was neat to see people from around the world. I think the year that I did it, there was a couple guys that were from Japan, and they wore like their samurai suits, and it was his birthday, and they were the funniest guys. Yeah. But there are people, I realize now that stage racing is fairly big in Europe. It seems that there's a bigger stage racing community there, and so you get a lot of European people coming to the race.
Yeah, well, our sister event, Transalpine Run, starts in Germany every year, and it's a big race. It's 600 runners, and they don't really do a camp. Everybody stays in hotels, but it's a much harder race as well to trans. I was there last year. Actually, I got cut off. I did stage 4, and I didn't make the cutoff. Like they're going up and down like mountains. I'm like, I got the one checkpoint. I'm like, where are we going? Where are we going next? And this German dude's like, up there, and I'm like, it looked like Mount Everest, right? So in Transrockies, you can kind of get through Transrockies no matter what your fitness level is. But if you want to go do Transalpine, you gotta.
We met a girl there named Katie, and she did that race, I believe, and I followed her along, and it was amazing. So I was hitting her up saying, hey, you got to come back to Transrockies. I'm going back for the 5-year anniversary of doing it. But she went and did the one in Europe, and it looked unbelievable. She's up there in Canada where you're at, and she runs some unbelievable mountains, and just it's so beautiful.
Oh yeah, we're in a good spot in Canada in the mountains. Like I love it here. Lots of trail running, and and we're not at the altitude that we are in Colorado, but it's 4,000, 5,000 feet. So
now. One of the second most favorite part of the race, I'd say, is when so I'm curious if it's still there or if you're doing it this year, is there was a point, I think it was maybe, is it Red Cliff? Is it called Red Cliff?
Yeah, Red Cliff, yeah.
I think it's either the day you're coming into Red Cliff, and there's a point where you get to this little bridge, and essentially they turn you down this river, and you run in the water, anywhere from ankle to knee deep water down this river for, I don't know, it felt like a mile.
Yeah.
And starting that race, I was so scared of getting my feet wet day one, right? It's like, oh my God, if I get my feet wet, I'm going to blister. It's going to be terrible. I had extra socks. And then I got my feet wet a couple times and it was no big deal. And when we hit that water, that was so fun to go down that little river in the water. So that was probably my second favorite part of the race.
Yeah, that's stage 4. That's Nova Guys to Red Cliff.
Okay. Yep.
So yeah, like I said, I ran stage 4 last year. And there's probably only ankle deep of water in the creek. But this year they've been tons of snow in Vail and Beaver Creek. So I'm guessing that water is going to be knee high come August. So
wow,
last year was like ankle, but I think this year will be like knee high. So just because all the snowpack, so it should be even more fun, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it'll be nice and cold too.
Legs will be numb, so you don't have to worry about feeling your legs. So it's super cold.
Yeah, that was the first time I've ever done something like that. Gone down a river in water that distance, and so that was probably my second big memory of that race was doing something like that because it was just very cool.
Yeah. I know it's always a favorite. It's always a favorite. Lots of good camera shots too. So
yeah, and then you come out and you're kind of on a dirt road all the way out, and it gives you're basically dry by the time you get out. At least the year I did it, it was warm enough that you were dry by the time you got done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because after that's like about a mile through the river, then you hit the last checkpoint, and then you turn left, and it's like a downhill like another 2 miles to the finish line. So then you finish in Red Cliff, which is cool because we finish in front of a bar called Mangoes.
Yeah, and you have margaritas.
Yeah, margaritas and fish taco. So that's a favorite finish because the announcer is literally right out in front of the door. So you cross the finish line, turn left, and you open the front door to a bar. So that's their busiest day. They told me that's their busiest day of the year is when Transrockies comes to town.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now I remember, did we start and finish in Red Cliff?
Yeah. So at the end of day 4, you finish in Red Cliff.
I remember taking a bus or a van into Red Cliff thinking, holy crap, because it's like hilly and you're kind of going through this little tiny town.
Yeah. So we start stage 5 in Red Cliff as well. So you finish day 4 in Red Cliff and then start day 5 in Red Cliff. And that's when you go Red Cliff to Vail. Yeah,
we were camped over. I just remember walking by a church because we went to somewhere to get dinner. Dinner was in a banquet hall or something there, wasn't it? Was there, or did we do something in a hall back then?
No, not. It's in a tent. It's in a tent.
Every night?
You're probably talking at the end of day 3. We do, in Leadville, we have a dinner in the banquet hall.
That's where it was. Yeah. It all mixed together.
Yeah. So when you did it, we were probably at the mining museum, and then now we're at the 6th Street Gym, which is just right off Main Street. So. Right downtown Leadville it's a gym called 6th Street Gym, and that's where we have our dinner and breakfast. So
very cool. Now, is the race sold out at this point?
No, we got about I think 65 spots left. So
all right. Well, yeah. Anyone looking for a summer runcation, you've got to look at this race. It's just transrockiesrun.com. Is there a dash in there?
Yeah, transrockies-run.com.
Yeah, and again, there's a 3 and 6 day, and it is. Yeah, it is something you will always remember. That's for sure. And
I can give you a discount code too. It's Epic 200, so that's $200 off. So Epic
sweet.
200. Yeah.
Epic $200. I'll list that in the show notes, and I'll put a link to it and all of that. So that'll be great. Well, cool.
It's your bib. You did Ironman Arizona. That's the one I did too.
Yeah, I did Ironman Arizona twice, and then I did Coeur d'Alene. And I did Lake Placid. I was just thinking about that when you said that. I'm like, I don't know if I have my Lake Placid.
Yeah,
I don't know what happened to my Lake Placid. Yeah, but I did Arizona the year it was in April, and then they moved it to, I think, October.
Yeah, so for all you triathletes out there, it's kind of funny because when Transrockies started, it was all kind of hardcore trail runners. And now the last probably 5 years, we get a lot of former Ironman athletes and triathletes that are kind of bored of swim, bike, run. They want to try something new, and they got the fitness. So Yeah, it's kind of tons and tons of former Ironman finishers are lacing up their trail running shoes and heading on the dirt. So
Yeah, I met a bunch of triathletes when I was there, and I believe you guys had that year that I ran it. I'm trying to remember is it Cam?
oh, Cam Whittoff.
Yeah, he ran it. I believe he might have. I don't remember if he won it because the other guy that was running it was the Salt Stick.
Jonathan Toker.
Yes, those two guys were like battling it out.
Yeah. And Cam's a former top 10 Ironman world champ finisher.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. He's a character.
I remember watching those guys. There's one of I don't remember which stage it is, but there is a stage where you start literally and you're going up a hill. I mean, really up a hill. And it's not coming out of Leadville or something like that. It's one of the camps almost where you just, it's like you're.
Stage 4, I mean, you leave Camp Hale.
That's it.
Yeah. It's a slog up to the checkpoint.
Yeah, I remember watching those guys run up that hill thinking they're running up that steep hill faster than I run a 5K, probably. I mean, they were just hammering.
Oh, yeah. Some of the top people are just like, men and women. They just power up those climbs. It's amazing. Yeah. And last year, I had these two Swedish girls. They won Transalpine Run, and then they came over and then did Transrockies Run. And they're about 80 pounds soaking wet, and they would just fly up the hills, right? They're mountain goats. They're amazing.
And the cool thing about that race is because, again, you are there over and over and over. You end up socializing with all these people and getting to meet some really elite runners. And then, you're just meeting everyone. And there's always people there that, I remember the day that there was a couple that were coming in, and they basically finished every day at the very end, but it kind of became this thing, right, where everyone would gather around the finish line for them to come in and finish.
Well, and then that's the beauty of trail running. It doesn't matter, what color your skin is, what your weight is, what your background is. Everybody at Transrockies Run, where we're one for 6 days, and everyone just kind of gets along. And like I said, we're camping together, we're eating together, we're running together, we're having a beer together, and it's kind of cool where everyone just kind of, I don't know, I felt when I was doing the Ironman scene, it was a bit a different scene. So I'm much rather the trail running scene. It's more friendlier.
Oh yeah, and it's funny because I was cycling, right? And then I went to triathlon. I'm like, oh my gosh, triathletes are so much nicer. They're so much more welcoming. And then after doing that for years and years and years, and then going to trail running, you realize, wow, this community is even, it's even more of a community, and everyone's so nice, and everybody wants to help you and share experiences. So it's just a whole nother level.
Oh yeah, and all the elites, like last year, Rob Carr was in Leadville preparing for the Leadville 100, and he ended up running on the trail and cheering people on. So it doesn't matter if you're a lead or back of the pack; everybody gets treated the same, and there's no cockiness in camp. There's no elitism. Everyone's just kind of there to have fun, and let's just try to get everybody to the finish line at Beaver Creek and have some fun. So, and that's what I kind of like about Transrockies Run. It just the vibe that it creates. So.
I remember when Rob was training for that, because I think Billy Yang came out as well at some point and did it and did some video on there and stuff like that. So that was neat to see.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to shooting. The last time I did it, I had a GoPro and that was it. So it's like, this year I'm looking forward to being able to shoot the camp experience and maybe get some drone shots and some stuff like that, and really be able to document the race from start to finish because I mentioned it before we start, but for the listeners, I'm got 5 weeks, about 4.5, and then I finish my 100. Finish this 100-mile training anyway, and I'll go do the race, and that's the first week of April. And after I roll out of that and I recover a little bit, I pretty much am switching my training over to training for Transrockies, which is August. What day does it start? August 13th.
August 13th.
13th. Yep. I always know because my birthday is August 11th. My wife's birthday is August 12th. And so it's right around our birthdays. And the year I did it, it started a little earlier. So my birthday was during the race, and then my wife's birthday was during the race. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it always falls right around our birthdays.
You should bring your wife out. She can run with you.
I know. It's the two. Well, yeah, no, she would not. I always say she works out for the social side of it and to stay in shape. But she's not one for running long. That's not her thing. So luckily she's supportive and she kicks the kids and she's like, you know what, you can go away for 6 days and do that.
Speaking of which, it's International Women's Day, I believe, today, and it's Transrockies Run will have the field this year will probably be 60% women.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was even when I did it back then, there was a huge amount of women. And when you think about women as a percentage of trail running, it's not very big. But when you look at something like Transrockies, there's actually a woman that I met, I'm forgetting her name, but she owns a company called Racemate, and they make these bags and stuff like that. And she's actually doing the race.
Yeah. Actually, that's right. Yeah, we've been emailing each other, actually.
Yeah, so I need to connect with her. I want to get her on the show and then connect with her while I'm out there. So she sent me a bag. So my goal is to use that for my upcoming races and do some reviews on it and stuff like that. So I think she's originally from Australia, I believe.
Is she? Okay.
Yeah, the whole Racemate.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
So
I should know. I used to live in Australia.
Yeah.
And we have Judy Galloway will be, there's two ladies. Judy Galloway, she's 65 years old. So this will be her 8th or 9th Transrockies. And Mary Haskins from New York City, she's 56. I think this will be her 8th Transrockies. So
that is so cool.
Yeah. Every time I need motivation, I just go on Judy's Facebook and look at all her running photos. And she's still rocking it at 65 years old. So I have no excuse.
Yeah, exactly. That is very cool. Yeah, it's amazing his social media. You find these people and it's like, all right, what's my daily dose of motivation? Let's go see. Yeah. They got up in the morning, they went out. So that's one of the things about my series, this YouTube series that have really, I think, connected is that, I'm a dad. I got a job. I'm training for an ultra. You get up at 4 a.m. every day to go run. And, so.
Yeah, it's just that's the kind of cool thing. You meet so many different people from so many different walks of life, and everyone's got a different story, and it's just kind of cool just to meet people and get to know their stories of where they came from and how they ended up in Colorado running a 6-day trail race. And some people have never even done a trail race, and they rock up at Transrockies. I'm amazed. I'm like, are you guys nuts? I'm like, what are you thinking? But
that is pretty insane.
Adventure.
It is. It truly is like you can treat it as almost a multi-day hike. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's enough time. There doesn't really seem to be. I can't remember if there's cutoffs really.
They're 9 hours, but we don't really want to. Yeah, I tell people if you just hike it, and then you'll be fine.
Yeah, 9 hours is plenty of time to get through most days. I mean, even because the days that you go to 13 or whatever, 1,000 Hopes Pass, it's only a 14 or 13 day, so it's a lot less mileage, which is nice.
Yeah, the winners on Hope Pass, they're done in 2 hours.
It's insane.
Yeah, so they're doing 13 miles in 2 hours, and and then the back of the pack will come in probably 2 o'clock, so 3 o'clock. So it's we never take the finish line down. We always have lots of food for everybody. That's my rule of thumb with all the volunteers at the checkpoints. Whatever Rob Carr and Anna Frost get at the checkpoints, I want to make sure the last person gets the same thing, right? So
yes. Yeah, and the aid stations are first class. I will say the volunteers, everybody, it's awesome.
Yeah.
So you guys put on an amazing event.
We have 350 participants and we have 100 crew. So the ratio from crew members to the participants is pretty good.
Yeah, that's insane. When you think about most races are nowhere near that size crew.
Yeah, and the good thing for me is like we have people come back year after year. So all the checkpoint people are the same checkpoint people every year. The same luggage guys, the same start-finish guys. So it's kind of makes my job easier, right? Because they know all the locations where to put the start-finish arts. They've done it before.
They're dependable.
So it's like the start-finish comes down, the fencing comes down, it's in the truck, and they can do it in 8 minutes. Then they drive to the finish line as fast as they can and put it back up in about 20 minutes, right?
Yeah, they're amazing. The luggage guys were so awesome. They've got such personalities and loading those bags in and out every day. Everything's ready when you get there. And that was one of the things that it'll be interesting going back this year, right? The first year you go, for me, it was like, what do I need, right? Okay, you've got this big duffel bag you give at the beginning when you check in. And it's like, okay, I got to fill that thing up, right? Yeah. You got jeans and you've got these things and you got all this stuff. And at the end of the race, I didn't use anything in there hardly, right? I brought like all this supplements and all of these things. It's like you're pretty much eating what you guys have. You need a couple days worth of race stuff because you hang it out to dry each day. And I way overpacked.
Yeah. Oh yeah, everybody does, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll also have the heaviest bag. So make sure when you're packing, you're like, don't pack too much stuff, or the luggage guys might go on stage and roast. Because we have your bib numbers on the bag. So
Yeah, there's heaviest bag, and then there was like lightest bag.
yeah. Well, I I remember the Japanese guys. I remember, and when you did the race, I was helping the luggage guys, and I grabbed the Japanese guys' bags, and I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, I shouldn't have done this, but I had to open up their bags. Like they had nothing in their bags. It was like 2 pounds. I don't know what they wore the same thing every day, and they had the biggest smiles on their face
They were so happy.
And they did not bring anything along with them. So
yeah, this year I'll be replacing clothes that I don't need with extra camera equipment.
That's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for the time coming on here and sharing with us about the race.
No problem.
I am super, super pumped for the race. I have been looking forward to this ever since finishing the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell your friends, and we hope to see you in Colorado. And yeah, maybe I'll pass across next week in Southern California.
Yeah, exactly. No, believe me, my shift will be focused on this race, and I will be I'll be like a walking promotion.
Well,
So
thanks for having me on. This is my first podcast, so thanks for having me on.
Well, cool. Well, you did great.
Thank you very much.
Now, where can people? Obviously, you talked about the website for Transrockies-run, right? .com.
Yeah.
Now, how about yourself? Where can people find you?
I'm on Facebook, Kevin Huda McDonald, and Instagram. My Instagram handle is Huda44. So HOUDA 44.
Yeah, that's a good one to follow because that's where you're posting a lot of your pictures and stuff like that. So I'll link that one down below because you get to see all the crazy stuff that places you go.
Yeah,
makes me jealous.
That's a good thing about being single when you're 44 years old, right?
Yeah, well, you've definitely had a very cool life so far. I mean, it's amazing to see. So it's been fun. Yeah. So thanks again. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. I'll link all the information below, and I can't wait to catch up with you. We'll do something. Maybe you'll have time. We'll connect and do a short little thing when I'm there.
All right, sounds good, buddy. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no problem. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. I really appreciate it. This is fun. This was a good show. We transitioned to doing recordings instead of doing them live, and I think the quality is much better. So if you get a chance and you're listening to the podcast, please jump on there, give it a review. Hopefully it's a good one. Give it a thumbs up. And if you're enjoying the content on YouTube, please subscribe or give it a thumbs up. Leave some comments, things like that. Appreciate that. I always enjoy reading those. And anything that you comment, I'll make sure I pass on to Kevin so he can hear what you guys are saying. But thank you guys very much, and we will talk to you next week. Out, trail run.